Hi everyone. We're going to talk a little bit about plot structure. One of the things that I'm asking you to do in the crossover unit is to go through and talk about the important plot points. I've asked you to storyboard your section of the novel, and within that storyboard we put together the most important scenes. But we have to really break it down even further. And so I wanted just to go over a basic reminder with everybody about plot structure. And I'm going to go through an example using a picture book just because it's short and we can hit all of our important points by going through this book. This is an old story, one that my parents used to read to me when I was a child, so it's very, very old, but it's cute and it'll do the job just fine. So let's just start by talking about the plot structure, and there's a reason why there is, we usually use this sort of mountain graph type of structure. Some people call it Freytag's pyramid, but there's a reason that we use this shape, and the reason is that it's a visual representation of what the author is doing in the story, where the story is going. We have our very beginning part, which we call the exposition. This is the part where there's not a lot happening except that we're getting to know who is in the story, where the story is, and maybe we're going to find out what the problem's going to be, or we're going to get a hint about it. But as you can see, this is just the tiniest little angle up. For the most part, there's not a lot going on here except that the reader is getting to know the basic parts of the story. We want to know what it is about, who it is about, and where it's set. It's very important for us to know the setting. Remember, because if we find out that a story is set during World War II, that's a lot different than a story that's set on a farm in 1830 or in New York City in 2018. Those three things would be very, very different stories. So it's important for us to know, even if we have to use some sort of inference, we really need to know where the setting is. So that's the first part. Not much happening. We're just sort of leading in. The second part's called the rising action, and if you follow this line up, you can see that it really is rising towards the third point. And the reason that it's the rising action is that this is where things start to happen. People start getting in fights. Bad stuff happens. And almost without fail, these events are things that the characters can't sort of back off from. Sometimes these points are called, like the doorway to no return, or something similar to that, because the characters really have no choice but to proceed, to rise up. And there's another worksheet that has several of these rising action steps, because for the most part, it's not just one big conflict that then leads to the climax. There's a series of things where things get worse and worse and worse, and as they get worse, you can see that this line on the pyramid continues to grow up and grow steeply. And then we get to a point, this third point, which is really the top of the mountain, and the conflict here has reached the highest point of interest. There is, this is sort of the do or die moment. Either things are going to be resolved one way or another. Either our character is going to resolve what's going on, or maybe will die, or there's something that's going to happen that things can't get any worse, or they can't get more, or they couldn't get better, or they couldn't be more tense. So this is really the highest point of conflict, of tension right here. And once that happens, then we have some resolution. We have things are going downhill. Okay, everything is sort of settling down and resolving. And that leads us to that last part, which is the resolution. And almost like the beginning, you can see that this angle is much, much narrower than this. This is a much steeper angle, both of these. So we have really exciting, really exciting, really exciting. And then this is usually a little shorter, because once the climax happens, there's less to do than there was when we built up over here. Okay, and then we have our resolution, and this is sort of the and they lived happily ever after part, or rocks fall and they all die. However the end of the story is, that's what that graph is.